AITA for confronting my brother over his new fiance's behavior at our family gatherings. This has been a long-standing tension in our family, and I still can't tell if I overstepped or if I was completely justified. I, 32F, have a younger brother, Jake, 29M, who has always been a bit impulsive. He's a great person in general, but he sometimes makes decisions without considering the consequences, which has led to some chaos over the years. A few months ago, he got engaged to a woman named Melissa, 27F. At first, I was cautiously optimistic because Jake seemed genuinely happy, and he had been dating around for a while. My family was equally excited, though some of us were a little wary since Melissa has a very dominant personality and tends to speak over others in conversations. The first few family dinners with Melissa were fine. She was polite, smiled a lot, and generally seemed enthusiastic about being part of our family. But over time, her behavior started to shift in ways that became noticeable and uncomfortable. For example, during Thanksgiving, she made multiple comments about how she would run the holiday better and criticized how my mom set up the table, saying it was old-fashioned and inefficient. She interrupted conversations regularly, often speaking over my younger cousins when they try to share stories. My dad, who usually handles these situations calmly, quietly tried to redirect conversations back to the original topic, but Melissa would often ignore him. I initially brushed it off, thinking she was just nervous or trying to fit in, but things escalated during Christmas. She arrived with a group of friends I had never met, insisted they sit at the main dining table, even though it was meant for family, and loudly criticized the type of food my dad cooked. When my dad tried to politely suggest a compromise, she scoffed and said, "I'm just trying to make things better for everyone." By the end of the night, my mom was visibly upset, and I felt a mix of anger and embarrassment that I couldn't hide. A few weeks later, Jake invited Melissa and me to go shopping for wedding planning. I thought it would be a good opportunity to bond and understand her perspective better. During the shopping trip, she criticized my outfit choices and my weight in front of store associate, saying things like, "You could be so much prettier if you just tried harder." I froze, and the associate looked uncomfortable. I tried to laugh it off, but internally, I was furious. I didn't confront her immediately because I didn't want to start a fight in public, but I told Jake later that night. His response was what frustrated me the most. He said, "Melissa is just being honest. You're being too sensitive. She doesn't mean it in a bad way." I tried explaining that honesty does not justify being cruel or humiliating someone in public, but he brushed it off. The breaking point came last week during a small family barbecue at my parents' house. Melissa brought her own playlist and insisted we play her music instead of anything we usually listen to. She openly criticized how my mom prepared side dishes, calling them lazy and bland. When my little nephew tried to show her a drawing he made, she immediately dismissed it and started talking about her own accomplishments instead. At one point, she loudly asked everyone to vote on whether her potato salad or my mom's potato salad was better, turning a lighthearted family activity into a competitive and awkward moment. I couldn't take it anymore. I confronted her in front of everyone, telling her that her behavior was disrespectful, rude, and inappropriate for a family gathering. I explained that family events were about enjoying each other's company, not competing or putting others down. I also mentioned that repeatedly undermining my parents and making children uncomfortable was unacceptable. Melissa looked shocked and offended, claiming I was attacking her for being confident and that I had no right to. Judge how she interacts with people. Jake immediately jumped in, saying I ruined the party and that I should apologize for embarrassing Melissa. He also said I was overreacting and being controlling. My parents looked uncomfortable but didn't say much. My mom later told me privately that she understood why I was upset, but didn't want to make the situation worse. My dad told me he wished I had spoken to him first instead of confronting her in front of everyone, but he also admitted that Melissa's behavior was out of line. Since then, the atmosphere between Jake and me has been tense. He hasn't spoken much to me, and I feel guilty for creating a conflict. At the same time, I feel like I can't just ignore the way Melissa treats my family, especially my parents and younger cousins. My friends and a few other family members have said I was justified in calling her out, but Jake and Melissa have painted me as the problematic sibling. I'm torn because I love my brother, and I don't want to drive a wedge between him and the rest of the family. But I also feel like letting Melissa continue this behavior without any consequences is unfair. My parents are caught in the middle, trying to stay neutral, and I don't want to create a permanent family rift. So, AITA for confronting my brother's fiancée in front of everyone about her rude behavior. Or should I have handled it differently? I feel like someone needed to set boundaries, but I also feel guilty about the way it went down. The tension now is palpable, and I'm not sure how to repair things without compromising my values. Has anyone dealt with a situation where a new family member's behavior crosses the line? How do you set boundaries without alienating the person or your sibling? I'm desperate for perspective because I honestly don't know if I'm the problem here or if I acted appropriately. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to give my childhood home to my younger brother, even though our parents left it to me. This is a long story, and I want to make sure I explain all the details so people can understand why I feel conflicted. I, 35F, recently inherited my parents' house after they passed away last year. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings. My younger brother, Jake, 28M, and my sister, Lisa, 31F, have both been involved in my parents' lives, but I was always the one who stayed closest to them and handled most of the family responsibilities. I also have been the one who helped them financially and emotionally, especially during their last years. Our parents left me the house in their will. It was explicitly stated that they trusted me to make decisions about the property, including whether to sell it, rent it, or keep it. I was grateful for their trust and wanted to honor their memory in a way that felt right to me. I grew up in that house, and it holds a lot of sentimental value for me. I have vivid memories of birthdays, holidays, and milestones there, and part of me feels that it's where my sense of stability and identity began. When I told my siblings about the will, Lisa was understanding, but Jake reacted very differently. He immediately demanded that I give him the house, or at least let him live there rent-free. He argued that since I'm older, I had already had the opportunity to enjoy the house, and it was now his turn. He claimed that he needed a stable place to live because he was having financial difficulties and was tired of renting. I explained that while I empathize with his situation, the house was left to me and that it would be disrespectful to our parents' wishes for me to hand it over. Jake became very angry and started making personal attacks. He accused me of being selfish, greedy, and unfair, saying that I was hoarding family assets. He also said that I wasn't thinking about our parents' legacy and that they would have wanted him to have the house. I reminded him that our parents explicitly named me as the beneficiary and that they trusted my judgment. He said I was twisting their intentions and trying to control everything. Things escalated when he started telling extended family members that I was being selfish and ruthless for refusing to give him the house. Some relatives have sided with him, saying I should consider his financial struggles and that it would be a kind gesture to let him have the house. Others have told me that he has no legal claim and that the house is rightfully mine. The mixed reactions have made the situation even more stressful because I feel like no matter what I do, someone will be upset. I've considered compromising. I offered to sell the house and split the proceeds among the 3 of us, but Jake refused, saying he didn't want money. He wanted the house itself. I suggested that he could move in temporarily as a tenant or that I could help him look for another property, but he said none of that is acceptable. He believes that the house is his by right, and he has refused to listen to any reasoning. Lisa has been supportive of me, saying that I should honor our parents' wishes and not feel guilty for doing what's right legally and morally. She also reminded me that Jake has a history of manipulating family members to get his way and that giving in now could create a pattern that would cause more conflicts in the future. I've tried to remain calm, but his attacks and the pressure from other relatives are wearing me down. I also worry about family dynamics. I don't want to lose my relationship with Jake, but I feel like giving him the house against my wishes would only lead to resentment on my part, and probably more tension later. I feel guilty because I know he's struggling, but I also feel that I'm trying to honor our parents' wishes and protect my own boundaries. Jake has threatened legal action, claiming that our parents intended for him to have a part of the house, even though the will clearly names me as the sole beneficiary. I consulted a lawyer, and legally, the house is completely mine, but I still feel conflicted because of family pressure and my desire to maintain peace. I've also considered letting him move in temporarily, but I'm worried that he would overstep boundaries, not respect my space, and create constant tension. I've had experience with him living with friends in the past, and it often ended badly with arguments over bills, cleaning, and personal space. I don't want to repeat that situation in my own home. I've been thinking about all of this nonstop for weeks. Part of me wants to be generous and help my brother, but another part of me feels like giving him the house would violate my parents' trust and my own sense of what's right. I also worry about precedent. If I give in to him now, he may expect more from me in the future, and it could permanently damage our relationship. So, I want to ask, AITA for refusing to give my brother my childhood home, even though he insists he deserves it and claims our parents would have wanted him to have it? AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house after she insulted my home and lifestyle? I, 32F, have always had a modest but comfortable life. I live in a small house in a quiet neighborhood, and while it's nothing extravagant, I take a lot of pride in making it cozy and welcoming. My sister, Karen, 35F, has always been more extravagant. She likes everything big, flashy, and expensive. Growing up, she often criticized our parents' home and lifestyle, and unfortunately, she has carried that attitude into adulthood. A few months ago, Karen got engaged to her fiancé, Tom, 36M. Almost immediately, she started talking about how she wanted a dream wedding, and she began discussing venues, decorations, catering, and everything else. Initially, I was happy for her and offered to help in any way I could. I thought maybe she just wanted some input from family. Then the conversation took a turn. She mentioned that she wanted to save money, and she asked if she could host the wedding at my house. I was surprised because my home is quite small, and I never imagined it as a venue for an event that could have more than 50 guests. I politely told her that my house might not be suitable for her wedding, but I could help in other ways. I suggested helping with decorations, invitations, or even contributing financially if needed. Karen didn't take this well. She started saying that my house was perfectly fine and that I was being selfish for not wanting to host her special day. I tried explaining again that I genuinely didn't think it was practical and that I wanted her day to be perfect and stress-free, which meant choosing a venue that could accommodate everyone comfortably. She snapped and said, "Well, I guess I shouldn't expect much from someone who lives in a dump like this anyway." I was stunned. I felt hurt, but I tried to stay calm and asked her why she felt the need to insult my home. She brushed it off, saying she was just being honest. After that, I decided I couldn't host her wedding. I thought it was unfair to put myself in a position where I would feel constantly criticized in my own home. I told her firmly that I loved her and I wanted her wedding to be amazing, but it would have to be somewhere else. I offered to help with planning or contribute to costs, but the house was off limits. Karen got even more upset. She told our parents that I was ruining her special day and that I was selfish and controlling. My parents called me, trying to mediate. They reminded me that it was her day and that I should just put my feelings aside for her happiness. I explained the situation calmly and mentioned the insult, but they said that I was overreacting and that Karen didn't mean it like that. The situation escalated when Karen started posting on social media, complaining about her selfish sister and how she was forced to find another venue because I wouldn't host her wedding. Mutual friends started reaching out, asking if I was really refusing out of pettiness. I was honest, telling them what she said about my home and how uncomfortable it would be to host under those circumstances. Some friends sided with me, but others thought I should just let it go for the sake of family peace. The tension between us has been unbearable. Karen has stopped talking to me directly, and any time we're at family events, there's awkwardness and passive-aggressive comments. She also hinted that she might not invite me to the wedding at all unless I apologize for being difficult, which I absolutely refused to do because I did nothing wrong. I'm still planning to attend if I'm invited, but I don't want to be treated like I'm the villain for setting a boundary. My parents keep reminding me that family harmony is more important than my feelings, but I feel like my feelings and boundaries matter too. I've reflected on whether I'm overreacting. Some people have suggested that I should have bit the bullet and hosted the wedding despite her insults. Others think I'm justified for not letting someone who doesn't respect my space throw a party in my home. I truly want her to have a wonderful wedding, but the thought of her looking around my home, criticizing it, and making me feel small on what should be a joyful occasion is unbearable. I've offered multiple compromises, including helping pay for a venue, helping with planning, and assisting with setup, but hosting is non-negotiable for me. Now I'm worried that refusing has permanently damaged my relationship with Karen. She has a habit of holding grudges, and I fear that this wedding issue might be something she brings up forever. I also feel frustrated that my parents are putting the responsibility for keeping the peace solely on me, rather than acknowledging that Karen's behavior was hurtful. I've tried to explain that boundaries are healthy and that respecting someone's home is a basic form of respect, but it doesn't seem to matter to anyone else. I've had friends and coworkers give me varying advice. Some say I should have ignored her insults and hosted anyway to avoid family drama. Others say that standing my ground is the right move and that I shouldn't let anyone make me feel inferior in my own home. I lean toward the latter because the thought of hosting under those conditions genuinely makes me anxious and upset. I also think that if I had a bigger or more extravagant house, she might have accepted it without complaint, which makes me feel like she's more focused on appearances than family connection. I'm sharing this now because I want an outside perspective. I honestly feel like I'm being reasonable. Karen insulted my home, my lifestyle, and my judgment, then expected me to host a significant life event for her. It seems unfair that I'm being painted as selfish when I'm actually trying to maintain boundaries and self-respect. On the other hand, I can see how some people might think I should have swallowed my pride for the sake of her happiness. I want her to have the wedding she dreams of, but I also want to protect my dignity and comfort. I fear this situation is escalating, and I'm not sure what more I could have done to prevent it without compromising my own well-being. AITA for refusing to let my brother attend my wedding after a decade of tension. I, 32F, am currently planning my wedding for later this year. My fiancé, Alex, 34M, and I have been together for 6 years and finally decided to make it official. I grew up in a close-knit family, but my relationship with my older brother, Ben, 38M, has always been complicated. For context, Ben and I used to be extremely close when we were kids, but after he graduated college, things changed. He became very controlling, judgmental, and dismissive of my choices, especially regarding my career and relationships. The breaking point came about 10 years ago. I had just graduated college and was pursuing a career in graphic design, which Ben openly criticized. He believed I was wasting my potential and constantly compared me to his friends, their children, and other family members. Over time, his remarks turned into passive-aggressive digs and, occasionally, outright verbal attacks. For example, he would text things like, "I hope your future husband makes more money than you do," or "You really shouldn't have chosen that apartment." Things escalated when I started dating Alex. Ben seemed to have a problem with everything about him, from his career to his hobbies to the way he treated me. He once came over unannounced and started questioning why I wasn't pursuing a higher-paying job, then commented on Alex's car, clothing, and even his friends. I tried to set boundaries, but he would always brush them off, claiming he was just looking out for me. The tension became so unbearable that, after multiple arguments and emotional outbursts from both sides, I went no contact with him for almost 8 years. My parents weren't thrilled about it, but they understood that my mental health was suffering and I needed space. Fast forward to last year. Ben reached out, claiming he wanted to reconcile and apologize for the past. I was skeptical, but I agreed to meet him once for coffee. The meeting was awkward but civil. He apologized again, seemed genuinely remorseful, and asked if I would consider including him in my wedding. I told him I needed more time to think, and that was where the discussion ended. As wedding planning progressed, Ben kept reaching out. He sent gifts, emails, and even tried to contact Alex directly, claiming he wanted to make sure I was happy. Alex found it strange and concerning, especially because Ben had never been supportive in the past. I decided to discuss this with my parents. They said that while they wanted me to forgive my brother, it was ultimately my choice whether to include him. Things reached a head last month. Ben sent me a long email saying he expected to be invited, claiming that it would look bad for our family if he wasn't there, and that I was punishing him for wanting to mend things. He also mentioned that our parents were upset with me for even considering not inviting him. This felt like emotional blackmail. I spoke with my fiancé about it, and we both agreed that if he came, it would create tension on a day that's supposed to be about celebrating our relationship. We decided to politely but firmly decline his request. When I informed Ben, he responded angrily, saying that I was being unreasonable, selfish, and that I was throwing away family for my fiancé. He even suggested that Alex must have influenced me to hate my family. I tried to remain calm, reiterating that the decision was about protecting my mental health and ensuring my wedding would be peaceful. He then started sending passive-aggressive messages to my parents, blaming them for letting me make this choice and implying they were taking sides. My parents have been caught in the middle. My mom says she's disappointed but understands my reasoning, while my dad keeps asking me if I might reconsider for the sake of the family. Meanwhile, Ben has threatened to boycott the wedding and even said he might spread rumors about how I ostracized him if we go ahead without him. I've tried to weigh my options. Including him could potentially ruin the day or cause a scene, but excluding him makes me feel guilty because I know it will upset my parents and other family members. I've also considered that this might be a one-time reconciliation opportunity, but I worry that it would be superficial and that old patterns might resurface. Some of my friends say I'm absolutely justified in protecting my mental health and setting boundaries, while others suggest that weddings are a rare occasion to mend family ties, even temporarily. I've considered inviting him, but asking him to agree to certain ground rules, but I honestly don't trust that he can respect them after 10 years of disrespect. So, AITA for refusing to invite my brother to my wedding despite him claiming he wants to reconcile. I want my day to be about me and Alex, but I also don't want to hurt my family unnecessarily. I feel like I'm stuck between my mental well-being and family expectations, and I'm not sure which side should carry more weight here. Has anyone else dealt with a sibling who's been toxic but suddenly wants to reconnect around a major event? How do you navigate wanting to protect yourself while keeping the family peace? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into our family vacation cabin, even though she insists it's the right thing to do. I, 32F, come from a small family. My parents passed away about 5 years ago, leaving my sister, Hannah, 30F, and me as the only children. Before they passed, our parents had a vacation cabin up north by a lake that they loved. It was a small, rustic place, nothing fancy, but held a ton of memories, summer trips, family birthdays, late-night bonfires. After their deaths, the cabin was left to both of us jointly. We've been maintaining it together, taking turns visiting, and using it mostly for family gatherings and quiet retreats. Hannah has been in a serious relationship with her fiancé, Adam, for almost 4 years. I like Adam. He seems nice and mostly respectful, but he's also very opinionated, demanding at times, and sometimes oversteps boundaries, particularly when it comes to family property or shared spaces. I've tried to be polite, and I've even invited him to the cabin occasionally, but I've always been clear that decisions about the cabin are between Hannah and me. The conflict began a few months ago. Hannah suggested that Adam move into the cabin full-time for the next 6 months while he works on a project nearby. She framed it as practical because it would save him commuting time and also let him enjoy the property more. I immediately told her no. I explained that the cabin was meant for family use, that it wasn't designed for full-time living, and that we never agreed to let anyone permanently occupy it without both our consent. She got upset and said I was being unreasonable, accusing me of not trusting Adam or not supporting her life choices. I offered compromises. I said he could stay for weekends or during special occasions, and I suggested we set a clear schedule so both Hannah and I could still enjoy the cabin. She refused. She said that weekends weren't enough and that since it was family property, Adam had a right to live there if she wanted him to. She even said that my refusal was selfish and that I was being difficult because I wanted to control the cabin. It didn't stop there. Hannah started sending me long texts about how I was hurting their relationship by refusing and how our parents would have wanted us to share the property with people we love. She compared it to other families she knew who allowed in-laws or significant others to live in vacation homes. I tried to explain that she's comparing very different situations and that the cabin has always been intended as a shared space for family, not a personal residence for one couple. Things escalated further when Adam got involved. He called me directly to pressure me into agreeing. He claimed that he was a responsible adult and could maintain the property better than we ever could, and that Hannah and I were making a mountain out of a molehill. I was shocked and told him that I would not negotiate about the cabin with him directly and that any discussion had to go through Hannah as my co-owner. He got defensive, saying that I was being rude and that he had a right to have a say because he was going to live there. Hannah is now furious with me. She's accused me of trying to sabotage her relationship and of being unsupportive. She has even suggested that she might consider selling the cabin because she feels I'm blocking her life. I reminded her that selling the cabin requires both our signatures, and I have no intention of selling it unless we mutually agree. She's been telling our extended family that I'm being controlling and selfish, which has caused tension with some relatives. A few of them have reached out, asking me why I'm being so rigid and why I can't just let Adam live there temporarily. I've tried to compromise in other ways. I've offered to help Adam find a nearby rental, offered to schedule extra weekends where he can stay, and even said I would help cover some of the property costs while he is visiting. None of this has been acceptable to Hannah. She says that I'm making excuses and that I'm not respecting her wishes as a co-owner. I also feel uncomfortable because the cabin was always a sanctuary for me. Living there full-time with someone I barely know in that context would change the dynamics completely. I value my privacy and the ability to use the cabin without feeling like I'm imposing on someone else's schedule. This is not about Adam personally. It's about preserving a shared family space that was meant to be a retreat for both of us. Some of my friends say I'm in the right for setting boundaries and not giving in to unreasonable demands. Others suggest that since it's family, I should compromise more and that refusing is petty. I feel torn because I want Hannah to be happy, but I also feel like this is about principle and protecting something that belonged to our parents. I don't want to sell the cabin just to appease her, and I don't want to give in to pressure that I feel is unfair. I also worry that if I give in, it sets a precedent where Adam might try to assert more control over family property in the future. I've seen situations where people start living in someone else's space temporarily, and it becomes permanent, causing resentment. I want to avoid that at all costs. So I'm conflicted. I love my sister, and I want to maintain our relationship. But I also feel that letting Adam move in full time is unreasonable and disregards my rights as a co-owner. I'm trying to balance fairness, family memories, and practical living arrangements. But Hannah sees it as me being unsupportive and selfish. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into our family cabin full-time, even though she insists it's the right thing to do. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding after she made a hurtful comment about my financial situation. This is a long one, and I'm still unsure if I'm in the wrong here, so I really need outside perspective. I, 29F, come from a family that's always been relatively close, although admittedly we have our quirks. My sister, Claire, 32F, is the kind of person who thrives on big gestures and appearances. Growing up, she was the star of every school play, the one everyone knew, and as a result, she always seems to want the spotlight, even in adulthood. I, on the other hand, have always been more reserved and practical, and I've never had the desire to live life on such a flashy level. I've always been financially careful, living within my means, saving what I can, and keeping things simple. Claire Claire enjoys extravagance. Recently, Claire announced that she's getting married. The twist? It's a destination wedding in Santorini. She made a grand announcement via a family group chat, complete with photos of the venue, the dress, and the resorts. The total cost per person was upwards of $4,000. I stared at the message in disbelief. Not only would I have to cover the trip, but also airfare, attire, accommodations, and gifts. I make a decent living, but saving for big trips isn't something I usually do, and $4,000 is not a small expense for me. I decided to message Claire privately to discuss my concerns. I told her that while I am thrilled she's getting married, attending the wedding is going to be a significant financial strain. I asked if there was any possibility of assistance or if there were ways to cut costs, like group hotel rates or contributing in a non-monetary way. Her response shocked me. Claire replied, "Oh, I didn't realize you were still living paycheck to paycheck. I guess I just assumed you'd make it work because it's family. We all want everyone to be there, but I mean, this is a special occasion. It's not really a trip you should be scrimping on." That one line stuck with me. I felt blindsided, hurt, and embarrassed. She essentially implied that my financial reality made me less capable of participating fully in her special life events. I tried to respond calmly, explaining that I love her and I want to celebrate her marriage. But the $4,000 cost is not something I can just make work without putting myself in a tight spot financially. She didn't reply after that. Over the next few weeks, she continued sending updates about the wedding, dress fittings, rehearsal dinners, wine tastings, and each time I felt more and more excluded. My parents tried to mediate, saying that Claire didn't mean anything by it and that she just wants everyone there. I understand wanting family present, but the way she worded it felt judgmental and dismissive. I began looking at alternative ways to celebrate her marriage without breaking the bank. I considered attending only the reception, which would be cheaper, or flying in after the main events. I also thought about throwing a small celebration in my city for her, but I knew she might perceive that as a lack of effort on my part. I tried bringing up these options, and each time she brushed them off, insisting that the full experience was important and implying that attending partially or not at all would be disappointing to her. As the wedding date approached, I finally had to make a decision. After reviewing my finances, I realized that even attending partially would require me to cut back on essentials for months, something I'm not comfortable doing. I decided to decline attending in person, but sent her a heartfelt letter and a substantial wedding gift. In the letter, I expressed how happy I am for her, how much I love her, and how I'm so disappointed that I can't celebrate in person, but that I'm celebrating her from afar. Her reaction was immediate and dramatic. She called me and, frankly, yelled. She accused me of not caring about her happiness, of being selfish, and of humiliating her in front of other family members who were attending. She even mentioned that my absence would make the photos incomplete and that it would be remembered forever that I didn't show up. My parents told her to calm down and try to understand my perspective, but Claire refused. She then posted on social media about how she was heartbroken that some family members couldn't make it, making me feel even worse. Since then, our relationship has been strained. I've avoided contacting her too much, but she continues to send passive-aggressive messages, asking if I've seen certain pictures or videos from the wedding and making comments like, "Wish you were here to experience this." I feel guilty because I know this is a huge event in her life, but at the same time, I feel like my financial boundaries are being disregarded and that she's prioritizing appearances over my well-being. I know family obligations can be tricky, but I can't help feeling like Claire's comment about my finances crossed a line. I've never made her feel financially inadequate in any way, and I've always been supportive of her dreams. It's not like I'm refusing to celebrate her entirely. I've sent a gift, a letter, and even offered to do something special once she's back from her honeymoon. Yet, she acts as if my love and effort mean nothing without physically attending a very expensive event. So here's where I need outside perspective. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding due to financial constraints after she made a hurtful comment about my situation? Am I being unreasonable by prioritizing my financial well-being over a family event? Or should I have tried to make it work, no matter the personal cost, to avoid hurting her feelings? I genuinely want to maintain a strong relationship with my sister, but I'm struggling with feeling disrespected and judged. Has anyone else been in a situation where a family member expected you to participate in an expensive event, and how did you navigate it without creating permanent rifts? I want to approach this delicately, but I also want to honor my own boundaries. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding after she made that comment about my finances, even though it has caused tension and hurt feelings. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of family tension. I, 32F, have a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emma, 36F. Growing up, we were incredibly close, but our dynamic started to deteriorate when I went to college and she stayed home. My parents always favored her academically and socially, and it felt like no matter what I did, it wasn't enough to earn their attention. I tried to let it go, but over the years, resentment built up. Emma has always been very controlling and dramatic, and while I initially brushed it off as sisterly rivalry, it started to affect my mental health in adulthood. She is also extremely competitive and has a habit of turning everything into a competition. Birthdays, holidays, and family gatherings often became arenas where she would outshine me. While I've tried to establish boundaries, she tends to ignore them and guilt-trip me when I refuse. The situation escalated when Emma got engaged last year. I was happy for her initially, but she immediately assumed I would handle most of the planning for her without offering any support. When I politely said that I had my own commitments and couldn't be involved in planning every aspect of the wedding, she made passive-aggressive comments about how I never care about the family and only think about myself. My parents, unfortunately, tend to side with her in these situations, and their lack of support has made it harder to maintain a relationship with Emma. A few months into her engagement, Emma started to drop hints that she expected me to take on a significant role in the wedding, including coordinating bridesmaids, helping with seating arrangements, and essentially being her assistant. I told her that I was happy to attend and support her, but I had limits. She reacted by sending long messages about how hurt she was and implying that my refusal meant I didn't love her or our family. The breaking point came when she invited me to a pre-wedding dinner. I RSVP'd that I couldn't make it due to work commitments, and she sent me a message that read, "If you can't even come to dinner, why should I even expect you at the wedding?" It was an emotional guilt bomb, and I felt cornered. I responded calmly, explaining that I loved her and wanted the best for her, but had legitimate commitments and boundaries I needed to uphold. Shortly after, I received an official wedding invitation with a note that said, "Your presence would mean the world to me, but if you can't make it, I'll understand." The phrasing struck me as passive-aggressive, and I knew she was expecting me to cave. I spent weeks wrestling with guilt and the thought of disappointing my family. I spoke to a therapist about the situation, and she reminded me that setting boundaries was healthy, even if it upset others. 2 weeks before the wedding, Emma sent me a long message detailing how hurt she was by my lack of involvement and stating that the family was disappointed in me. She also included a note that said my seat at the ceremony would be next to my parents, which I interpreted as a subtle form of shaming. I realized that attending the wedding under these conditions would likely lead to a scene or, at the very least, immense stress for me. After a lot of reflection, I made the difficult decision to not attend the wedding. I sent Emma a heartfelt letter expressing my love and explaining that while I wanted to celebrate her, I couldn't participate due to the ongoing tension and my need to protect my mental health. I also offered to have a separate dinner with her after the wedding to celebrate in a less stressful setting. The response from my family was immediate and intense. Emma posted on social media that I had chosen to stay away rather than support my own sister, and my parents called me repeatedly, accusing me of being selfish and disrespectful. My friends, who know the family history, have been supportive, but I still feel a pang of guilt and sadness. I know I made the decision that was best for my mental health, but the family backlash has been overwhelming. I've tried to maintain some contact with Emma since then, sending occasional texts and trying to engage in light conversation, but she has ignored most of them. My parents continue to pressure me to reconcile and attend family events, often using guilt as a tactic. I feel stuck between maintaining my boundaries and preserving some semblance of family harmony, but I also recognize that compromising my mental health is not sustainable. Recently, my younger cousin mentioned that my absence at the wedding was a major topic among family members and that they were surprised I wouldn't attend. I feel conflicted because while I understand their curiosity and disappointment, I also feel that they are overlooking the years of tension and emotional labor I have endured in this family. My therapist reminded me that while it's painful, not every family expectation is reasonable or fair. I'm now faced with the ongoing challenge of navigating family gatherings, birthdays, and holidays without causing major conflict. I've started drafting a plan where I can attend events on my own terms, potentially limiting contact with Emma and keeping my interactions brief. My friends suggest that I continue to enforce boundaries firmly, even if it means some family members remain upset. I've also started journaling about my experiences to process the lingering guilt and anger, and it's helping me see that my decision wasn't selfish. It was necessary. I still love my sister and hope for a future where we can have a healthier relationship. But for now, the wedding absence feels like an essential step for my own well-being. The situation is complicated, and I know that family expectations and traditions often carry emotional weight, but I also recognize that attending under pressure would be detrimental. I want to hear other perspectives. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding despite the family backlash. Or was it unreasonable of me to prioritize my mental health over family expectations? AITA for refusing to stay silent after my brother insulted my parenting choices at a family gathering, leading to a huge argument. I, 34F, have a 6-year-old daughter, Lily, and my husband, Tom, 36, and I try our best to raise her thoughtfully and intentionally. We follow a balance of structure and independence, encouraging her to make choices, express herself, and explore her interests. My family has always been a mix of supportive and overbearing, so I expected some comments about parenting, but what happened last weekend escalated in a way I never anticipated. The incident occurred during a family barbecue at my parents' house. My brother, Alex, 32M, has always been opinionated and competitive. He's married with a 4-year-old son, and he and his wife have a very strict parenting style. Screen time is minimal, meals are rigid, and any deviation from their rules is frowned upon. Usually, we avoid discussing parenting differences, but last weekend Alex was drinking a bit more than usual and old tensions resurfaced. The barbecue started pleasantly enough. Everyone was catching up, the kids were playing, and the food smelled amazing. Lily was happily building a fort in the backyard with her cousin, Max, and a few neighborhood kids. I encouraged her to take the lead and let her imagination run wild, which included painting some rocks with watercolors I had brought. Alex saw this and immediately commented that Lily would get paint all over everything and ruin the yard. I shrugged it off and told him it was okay. She knew to be careful and was having fun. Things escalated when Alex made a joke about screen time. I had allowed Lily to watch a short educational video on a tablet earlier in the day because it was raining and she was restless. Alex loudly said, "I can't believe you let her watch that junk. No wonder kids these days can't focus. You really just let her do whatever she wants." I told him it was a controlled, short video and that it was educational, not junk. He laughed and said, "Educational? Please. That's just babysitting yourself, isn't it?" I felt my face flush. I tried to let it slide, thinking maybe he was joking, but then he started on meals. Lily was having a sandwich with cheese, turkey, and some avocado. Alex said, "She's eating all that fatty stuff? You're setting her up for health problems. You really don't know what you're doing." I calmly reminded him that she has a balanced diet and that I consult her pediatrician for guidance. He rolled his eyes and muttered, "Yeah, right. Whatever you say." At this point, I felt frustrated, insulted, and defensive. I've spent years researching parenting strategies, and I try to make conscious, thoughtful decisions for Lily. Alex's comments were not only unwelcome, but undermined my authority as her mother in front of the entire family. I decided I couldn't stay silent anymore. I told him, loudly enough for everyone to hear, that his constant criticism was unhelpful and disrespectful, and that he had no right to publicly belittle my parenting choices. Alex didn't take it well. He immediately raised his voice, saying I was overreacting and taking everything too seriously. He accused me of being too sensitive and turning a small comment into a fight. I argued back that I had remained polite and tried to deflect his remarks, but he had been relentless. The conversation quickly became heated, with both of us speaking over each other. Our parents intervened, asking us to calm down, but Alex refused and continued to justify his behavior, claiming he was only giving advice and looking out for Lily. I told him that unsolicited criticism in front of our family was not advice. It was disrespectful. Things got even more tense when my sister joined in. She told me I should just let him say what he wants because it was his personality and that I was making a scene. I told her that while I understood people have different personalities, there's a line between personality and public humiliation. My husband, Tom, stepped in and supported me, reminding everyone that parenting choices are personal and that Alex had crossed a line repeatedly. The argument continued for about 10 more minutes, during which Alex called me overbearing and too sensitive, and I reminded him that there is a difference between guiding your child and constantly criticizing other people's children. The rest of the family grew increasingly uncomfortable, and the kids were scared and confused. Eventually, I walked away with Lily, and Tom followed. Alex refused to apologize, claiming I blew everything out of proportion. Since the barbecue, the atmosphere in the family has been tense. Alex hasn't spoken to me except through curt texts, and he's avoiding any family events I might attend. Some relatives have privately told me they think I was justified in defending myself and Lily, while others say I should have swallowed my pride to keep the peace. My parents have tried to remain neutral, but I can tell they are disappointed that our family gathering ended with a fight. I keep replaying the conversation in my head. On one hand, I feel I was right to stand up for myself and Lily because repeated public criticism is disrespectful and damaging. On the other hand, I know the argument embarrassed some family members and created lasting tension. I've always tried to avoid conflict, but I felt like I couldn't let Alex continue undermining me in front of everyone. I'm also worried. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house and facing backlash from my family. I, 32F, have always had a good relationship with my family, though it's far from perfect. I live in a suburban house I bought 5 years ago, after years of renting and saving diligently. It's modest but cozy, and I take pride in how I maintain it. I enjoy hosting small gatherings with friends, dinner parties, and occasional family events. However, I have boundaries, especially when it comes to the scale of events in my home. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, got engaged 6 months ago. From the start, she was clear that she wanted a big wedding, something that would involve nearly 150 guests, elaborate decorations, and an extensive catering setup. I offered to help with planning, budgeting, and even attending vendor appointments because I genuinely wanted to support her. However, she also casually mentioned that she thought my house would be perfect for the ceremony and reception, as it's close to her workplace and family members. At first, I was hesitant but tried to stay diplomatic. I explained that while my house is suitable for small gatherings of 20 to 30 people, accommodating 150 people would be impossible. I mentioned issues like limited parking, small bathrooms, no space for a formal dining setup, and the general stress of hosting that many people in a residential space. I also pointed out that insurance, safety concerns, and potential damage to the property were significant issues. Emily got upset and said she felt like I wasn't being a good sister, and that my refusal meant I wasn't supportive. I reiterated my points calmly, explaining that my concern was about logistics and safety, not a lack of love. She became visibly frustrated and accused me of always putting myself first and not caring about family traditions or the happiness of others. Things escalated when our parents got involved. They called me, insisting that I should make it work because it would save money and would be a beautiful, intimate wedding at home, implying that my refusal was selfish. I tried to explain again that I wasn't comfortable hosting such a large event in my house, and that I was happy to help in other ways, like contributing to the catering budget, helping find a suitable venue, or assisting with decorations. They countered that Emily had her heart set on my backyard, and that everyone would understand if I just agreed. Emily and my parents began to pressure me further, sending me links to DIY tent rentals, tables, chairs, and catering options. Every time I tried to suggest a compromise, like renting a hall nearby or having a smaller backyard ceremony followed by a larger reception at another venue, they would dismiss my suggestions as not good enough or too impersonal. Eventually, I took a firm stance and told Emily and my parents that I could not host the wedding at my house, under any circumstances. I explained that I wanted Emily to have a memorable day, but my home was simply not the right space, and I could not put myself in a position of immense stress and risk. I also mentioned that I had consulted my homeowner's insurance, and they explicitly advised against hosting an event of that size at a private residence. This declaration didn't go over well. Emily cried, called me selfish, and accused me of ruining her dream. My parents were furious, suggesting that I was being dramatic and inflexible. Extended family members also started weighing in, with some agreeing with Emily that home weddings were beautiful and personal, and others agreeing with me about safety and logistics. The tension escalated over the next few weeks. Emily started making passive-aggressive comments every time I spoke about the wedding, like asking if I had finally decided to be supportive. My parents occasionally made comments when visiting, hinting that I should reconsider, without outright saying it. I stuck to my boundaries, refusing to give in to pressure, but it's created an awkward, intense environment whenever family gatherings occur. I also felt some internal conflict. Part of me worries that I am being too rigid and might come off as unsympathetic. I understand that weddings are emotionally charged and that Emily has a vision she wants to bring to life. At the same time, I know that allowing her to use my house would be a logistical nightmare, potentially costly if anything were damaged, and emotionally draining for me. I've offered help in many ways that do not involve using my home, but it doesn't seem to satisfy Emily or my parents. A couple of friends have told me I'm completely justified and that it's important to have boundaries, especially for major life events that affect personal property and mental health. Others have warned me that my family might hold a grudge or that I might be seen as the bad sister forever if I don't compromise. To add to the complexity, my neighborhood has restrictions about large gatherings, and I would have to get permits for anything over a certain number of people. I've explained this to Emily and my parents, but they argue that rules can be worked around or that we'll figure out. That makes me feel like my concerns are being dismissed entirely. I don't want to damage my relationship with my sister or parents, but I also feel like giving in would cause me significant stress, possibly leading to resentment or conflict on the day of the wedding itself. I want to be a supportive sister, but I also want to protect my home, my mental health, and the relationships that matter to me. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, despite pressure from her and my parents. I've been trying to support her in every other way possible, but the home venue is a line I feel I cannot cross. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her choice of maid of honor. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 25F, and for the longest time, we've had a close relationship, even though we're quite different. I'm more introverted and careful about my friendships, whereas Emma is extroverted and has a big social circle. Over the past few years, our relationship has had ups and downs, mostly because I've always been wary of some of the people she's chosen to be close to. Recently, Emma got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, 27M. I was happy for her, and we talked a lot about the wedding plans. I was expecting a normal sequence of events, choosing bridesmaids, dress shopping, planning the guest list, etc. The problem started when Emma announced that her childhood best friend, Lisa, 26F, would be her maid of honor. On the surface, this seems normal, but Lisa and I have a long, tense history. She's been openly rude to me in the past, made backhanded comments about my career, and even once told me I wasn't really family during a minor argument. I thought Emma knew how Lisa treated me because I've told her on multiple occasions that I don't feel comfortable around her. Emma, however, brushed it off, saying that Lisa has changed and that I should try to get along with her for the wedding. As the wedding approached, I noticed that Lisa seemed to be going out of her way to involve me in ways that felt passive-aggressive. For example, she asked if I wanted to help with certain tasks, and then made snide comments when I said no or expressed doubt about doing them properly. When I spoke to Emma about this, she told me I was overreacting and that Lisa was just trying to bond with me. About a month before the wedding, Emma sent out the final guest list and seating arrangements. I saw that Lisa was listed at the head table with the bridal party, and I was at a table several rows back with people I barely knew. I felt like this was intentionally highlighting the divide between us, but I didn't say anything at first because I didn't want to make things worse. 2 weeks before the wedding, I received an invitation to the bachelorette party. I asked Emma privately if Lisa would be there, and she confirmed that she would. I told Emma that I didn't feel comfortable attending because of how Lisa treats me, and I asked if I could skip the bachelorette party without it affecting my relationship with her or my role in the wedding. Emma got visibly annoyed and told me that refusing the bachelorette party was a big deal and that I was being dramatic. The day of the wedding prep, things escalated. I tried to meet Emma for a brief chat, just to tell her how hurt I felt about Lisa's behavior and the seating arrangements. Emma said she was too busy and didn't want to talk. When I insisted, she told me that I needed to get over it, and that if I couldn't handle being around Lisa, maybe I shouldn't come at all. That was the breaking point for me. I decided to write a message to Emma explaining why I couldn't attend the wedding. I detailed Lisa's past behavior, the passive-aggressive interactions leading up to the wedding, and my concerns about the seating arrangement making me feel excluded. I told her that this decision was painful for me, but I couldn't put myself in a situation where I would feel humiliated in front of our family and friends. Emma reacted very angrily. She accused me of ruining her special day and claimed I was being selfish. She called me multiple times, texted me, and even showed up at my apartment to plead with me to come. I stayed firm, explaining that my decision wasn't about her wedding per se, but about protecting my own mental health. After the wedding, I received mixed messages from family members. Some relatives told me they understood and that it was reasonable not to attend if I felt unsafe or uncomfortable. Others said I had drastically overreacted and that family events are about putting aside differences for the sake of the occasion. I've since had very limited contact with Emma. She sent a few curt texts thanking me for my concern, but otherwise hasn't reached out. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I didn't want to hurt my sister on her big day. On the other hand, I know that being around Lisa would have been emotionally draining and possibly humiliating. I've had anxiety attacks in the past when dealing with Lisa, and I couldn't justify putting myself through that. I wonder if I handled it the right way. Could I have approached it differently? Was I wrong to refuse attending the wedding entirely? I tried reasoning with Emma and even asked for compromises, but nothing seemed to work. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I couldn't handle being around her maid of honor. AITA for confronting my cousin about his behavior at our family reunion. Even though it caused a huge fight, I've always considered myself close to my extended family, and for the most part, we get along well. My parents have a big family, so there are cousins, second cousins, and so on. One cousin in particular, let's call him Ryan, has always been a bit difficult, but I never thought much of it until our family reunion last month. I think I need some perspective on whether I overreacted or if I was justified. Ryan is in his mid-30s, and ever since we were kids, he's always had this habit of making subtle digs at people, often disguised as jokes. For a long time, I brushed it off, thinking it was just his personality. He's always been the center of attention type, charming to some people, but abrasive to others. I usually just avoided confrontations, figuring it wasn't worth it. That said, I've never been a big fan of passive-aggressive behavior, so I tend to notice it more than some family members. The reunion was at my aunt's house, and it was a pretty big event, about 40 people in attendance, spanning 3 generations. We were outside enjoying a barbecue when the usual teasing started. Ryan began making comments about my career. I work in academia, and I've spent the last several years teaching and doing research in a relatively niche field. He made a series of jokes implying that my work was meaningless and that I was basically wasting my life because I didn't make a lot of money. I laughed at first because I didn't want to cause a scene, but his comments kept escalating. Every time someone mentioned my accomplishments, he would find a way to minimize them, saying things like, "That's cute," or "I guess that's something to do with your free time." At one point, he turned his attention to my younger sister, who is 28 and works in marketing. Ryan made a remark about her fluffy job and said she was lucky she wasn't stuck in a real career like him. She laughed nervously, clearly uncomfortable, but didn't want to argue. I could feel my blood boiling because this pattern of him belittling everyone under the guise of humor was not only annoying, but also disrespectful. I tried to distract myself and focus on the people I enjoy talking to, but it was hard to ignore. Later, we were playing a group game, a trivia game my aunt had set up. Ryan made a snide comment about the younger kids' ability to answer questions, calling them hopeless. Then, when someone complimented a cousin who had just gotten promoted, Ryan muttered something about nepotism. By now, multiple family members were visibly uncomfortable, but no one wanted to confront him directly. I kept thinking that someone needed to stand up for themselves and the people he was targeting, so I decided to address it, although I knew it could escalate. I asked him to step aside with me to talk privately. He looked surprised and immediately went on the defensive, saying I was overreacting and that everyone knew he was just joking. I told him that his comments weren't funny and that they were hurtful. I explained that making people feel small or inadequate for the sake of entertainment is not okay, especially at a family event where we were supposed to support each other. I also pointed out that even though he might intend it as humor, the effect on people, including younger cousins, was negative. At first, he brushed it off and laughed, saying I was too sensitive and taking things too seriously. I told him I wasn't going to argue about sensitivity. The issue was that he was disrespectful and that his behavior needed to stop. He finally snapped, raising his voice and saying that I was being dramatic and trying to ruin the reunion. Our private conversation turned into a loud argument in front of a few relatives. Some tried to intervene, but Ryan refused to calm down. He started listing things he claimed I had done wrong in the past, trying to deflect, and then accused me of always picking fights. I held my ground, repeating that I wasn't attacking him personally, but calling out his behavior. At that point, my aunt came over and told both of us to calm down. She asked us to step inside separately and suggested we cool off. I reluctantly agreed, but the damage was done. Ryan spent the rest of the reunion avoiding me, and I noticed some awkward glances from other family members who didn't know what to think. Later that evening, my parents called me and said I might have embarrassed Ryan and that I should have just let it slide. My sister texted me privately and said she was proud I spoke up, but she also warned that Ryan might hold a grudge. Since the reunion, I've gotten mixed reactions from family members. Some think I was right to confront him and that it was long overdue. Others believe I overreacted and should have ignored it to keep the peace. I understand the argument for not rocking the boat, but I also feel like constantly letting someone belittle people without consequences just enables them. Ryan hasn't apologized or acknowledged his behavior, and he's been cold toward me in group chats and family gatherings since then. I keep replaying the incident in my head, wondering if I should have handled it differently. I could have addressed it more privately, in a calmer way, or waited for another time when fewer people were around. But at the same time, I feel like speaking up was necessary, not just for myself, but for others who might feel hurt by his comments. I don't want to be the type of person who tolerates bullying just to keep everyone else comfortable. So here I am, asking AITA for confronting my cousin about his repeated hurtful behavior at the family reunion, even though it caused a huge scene and made things awkward for everyone? Or should I have stayed silent to maintain the peace, even if it meant letting the behavior continue unchecked? AITA for refusing to give my sister-in-law a large sum of money for her emergency, which caused a huge family fight? This has been one of the most stressful experiences of my life, and I'm still not sure if I handled it appropriately. I, 32F, have been married to James, 34M, for 8 years. We have a comfortable life, we're careful with our finances, and we save regularly for emergencies, retirement, and our future. James has a younger brother, Michael, 30M, who is married to Lisa, 29F. Michael and Lisa have had a history of financial struggles, partly due to poor budgeting and partly due to living beyond their means. A few weeks ago, Lisa called me out of the blue while James was at work. She sounded frantic and told me she needed $8,000 immediately. According to her, it was an emergency because their car had broken down and they had medical bills piling up for their toddler. She was crying and saying they didn't know how they would survive without our help. I felt terrible hearing her panic, but I also knew that this was a huge sum of money, one that would significantly impact our savings. I asked for details about the bills and the car repair, and Lisa provided some, but I noticed that some of the numbers seemed inflated or vague. I explained to her that while I sympathized with her situation, we could not give her $8,000 outright. I offered instead to help them find resources like financial assistance programs, payment plans for the medical bills, or even a small loan that wouldn't endanger our finances. She immediately became upset, raising her voice and accusing me of being selfish, uncaring, and unwilling to help family in need. She insisted that this was an urgent situation and that we had to step up because family helps family. I tried to stay calm and reiterate our position. We were willing to help in ways that didn't put our financial security at risk, but we couldn't simply hand over such a large amount. Lisa accused me of caring more about money than her child and said that James would never forgive me if something bad happened because we refused to help. I told her that we were not trying to punish them or avoid helping, but that giving $8,000 without a plan was irresponsible and could harm both our family and our ability to help in the future. When I told James what happened, he was initially shocked and said he understood our position, but warned me that this would not go over well with Lisa or Michael. He reminded me that their parents, our parents, and extended family were likely to get involved and pressure us. I agreed to stick to our decision, but try to phrase it as compassionately as possible. We could help, but within reason and not by putting ourselves at risk. The next day, Lisa showed up at our house unannounced, bringing her toddler and demanding that we settle this immediately. She started crying and pleading, saying she had no other options and that her marriage and child's well-being depended on us giving the money. I firmly told her that we could not give her $8,000, and I would help in other ways, like driving her to the hospital for payment arrangements or helping her research loans with lower interest rates. She became louder, accusing me of being heartless and selfish, and threatened to call James's parents to make them force us to do the right thing. Things escalated quickly when Michael called James and started yelling at him over speakerphone, saying that we were refusing to help their family and that it was disgraceful. He accused us of holding money over them and implied that we didn't care about their child's safety. James tried to reason with him, but Michael continued to shout, and eventually, he hung up angrily. Later, Lisa sent multiple text messages repeating the same accusations, some of which were sent to both James and me, saying we were the worst family members and worse than strangers. Our parents soon got involved. They were furious with us for refusing to give Lisa the money, calling us cold and unhelpful. They argued that families should step up in times of need and implied that our refusal would cause lasting damage to family relationships. I tried to explain that helping responsibly and within our means is also important, and that handing over $8,000 without any plan or assurance that it would be used wisely was dangerous. They insisted that we were being unreasonable and selfish. We spent several days dealing with this situation, trying to find compromises. I offered to lend a smaller sum that would not strain our finances, or co-sign a low-interest loan, or cover some of the bills directly if provided with detailed invoices. Lisa refused all of these options, insisting that only giving her the full $8,000 would solve the emergency. She told James that if he didn't insist we comply, she would never trust us again and that we would destroy the family bond. At this point, the situation has escalated into a major family feud. Several relatives have taken sides, some supporting Lisa and Michael, others understanding our position. Family events have become tense, with extended family members making passive-aggressive comments or avoiding us entirely. Lisa continues to send messages criticizing us, calling us heartless, and accusing us of ruining her family's life. Michael has stopped talking to us except through brief, hostile messages. I keep thinking about whether we could have done something differently. I understand their desperation and that emergencies can be stressful, but I also know that giving $8,000 without a plan could create bigger problems for all of us. I also feel hurt that our family doesn't seem to appreciate the effort we made to help in other ways and instead paints us as selfish and uncaring. I've tried to communicate compassionately, but it hasn't been enough for Lisa or the rest of the family. So, AITA for refusing to give my sister-in-law $8,000 for her emergency, even though it caused a massive family conflict and made her accuse us of being heartless. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house after she tried to strong-arm me into it. So I, 34F, live in a modest but very well-kept home in a suburban area. I've spent the last decade renovating it little by little, and I really love having a cozy space that's just mine. I have a pretty busy life, so hosting big events is stressful for me, but I've always been willing to accommodate small get-togethers or family dinners because I care about my family. My younger sister, Maggie, 29F, is getting married this summer. Her fiancé, Josh, 31M, has a big family, and they've already planned a wedding that's going to be fairly large. Maggie initially asked if they could hold the ceremony at a local community hall, which is honestly much more suitable than my house. I agreed it might be easier for everyone. Then things started to get complicated. Maggie called me about a month ago, very excited, and said, "I was thinking, why not just have it at your house? It's beautiful, and we could use the backyard for the ceremony and the front yard for the cocktail hour. It would be so much more personal than a hall." I told her honestly that I didn't think it was a good idea because my house isn't equipped to handle a large number of people. I explained the space is limited, there's only one bathroom downstairs, and I don't have any professional catering equipment. I also mentioned that I value my privacy and having that many strangers in my home would be overwhelming. Maggie's tone immediately shifted. She said, "Oh, come on, you're overreacting. We don't need professional equipment. We'll just rent what we need. It won't be that many people in the backyard, maybe around 80. I tried to reason with her, reminding her that 80 people is a lot of people for my space, and that I had spent years building this home into a place I could relax and not feel constantly on edge. Then she hit me with the kicker. She said, "Honestly, I don't see why you're being difficult. You always have to have everything perfect. If you were a good sister, you'd do this for me." That was when I realized she was framing it as a moral obligation rather than a practical issue. I was shocked. I told her that while I love her and want her to have a wonderful wedding, I have every right to say no about my own house. Maggie got very defensive and started bringing up the fact that I'd hosted family events in the past, including my birthday party last year, which had about 50 people. I reminded her that one thing is having 50 people for a birthday and another is having 80 to 100 people for a wedding, including catering, music, and vendors. It's not remotely comparable. She said I was overcomplicating things and just being selfish. Things escalated when Josh got involved. He said, "It would really make things easier for everyone if we just use your place. We can clean up afterward, and we'll handle all the logistics. You're making this bigger than it has to be." I felt like I was being pressured from both sides. I calmly explained again that it's not about logistics. It's about my comfort and my right to say no. I suggested other venues, including a small local farm and a community garden that's designed for events. Maggie refused those options, saying they weren't special enough. After that, I stopped engaging in the discussion for a few days, hoping they would see that I was serious. When I finally responded, I said that if they wanted to use my house, the answer was no. I also explained that if they decided to go through with the wedding elsewhere, I would happily attend and help in other ways, such as with decorations, invitations, or picking out music. Maggie didn't take it well. She told our parents that I was being selfish and unsupportive, which completely blindsided me. I thought they would understand my perspective given that they know how much I value my personal space and how anxious I get about big crowds. Instead, my mom called me and said I was breaking Maggie's heart and not thinking about family. My dad said I needed to compromise and that it was my duty as a sister. I felt crushed and frustrated. The situation has caused a lot of tension in my family. Maggie refuses to speak to me except through text, and when she does, the messages are mostly guilt-tripping. Josh sent me a long email trying to convince me again, promising to clean, bring portable bathrooms, and even hire security if I was worried about too many people. I politely reiterated my no. To be clear, I have offered to help in countless other ways, helping with seating charts, addressing invitations, picking flowers, and even contributing financially if that would help with venue costs. I just cannot have a large wedding at my home. I feel like my boundaries are being completely ignored and that I am being unfairly vilified for standing up for myself. Some of my friends and coworkers say I'm right to say no, but others have told me that family obligations sometimes require us to sacrifice our comfort. I genuinely don't feel this is a reasonable sacrifice. It's not like Maggie is asking me to help with small details. She's asking me to host a potentially overwhelming event in my private home and then trying to guilt me into agreeing. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even though she really wants it there and is upset with me for saying no. I feel like I'm being accused of being selfish simply for protecting my home and my mental well-being, but now I'm questioning if I should reconsider, at least a little, to avoid permanently damaging our relationship. I'm really torn because I want to support her and her big day, but I also cannot compromise my boundaries in a way that makes me miserable for weeks. I'm looking for honest opinions on whether I've crossed a line here or if standing my ground is justified. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of being pushed aside by my family. This is a long one, so buckle up. I, 28F, have a complicated relationship with my family, particularly my older sister, Rachel, 32F, and my parents. Growing up, Rachel was the golden child. She excelled in school, sports, and social circles, and our parents constantly praised her while overlooking me. I tried to excel too, but nothing I did seemed to measure up in their eyes. They often compared me to her in ways that were hurtful and dismissive, framing me as lazy or unambitious, even though I worked hard to carve out my own path. When I went to college, I was determined to distance myself emotionally from my family. I chose a school across the country and slowly built a life where I didn't feel constantly overshadowed. I focused on my career and eventually became a graphic designer for a medium-sized company, which I genuinely enjoy. Over the years, I've made peace with the fact that my family might never recognize my achievements the way they recognized Rachel's. I also learned that I don't need constant validation from them to feel good about myself. Recently, Rachel got engaged to her longtime boyfriend, Mark, 34M, and I knew a wedding would be coming up. I was initially happy for her and told myself I would support her. But as soon as the planning started, old patterns resurfaced. My parents, particularly my mom, began pressuring me to be heavily involved, from choosing my outfit to helping with favors and planning events. I agreed to some things at first, thinking I could maintain some boundaries. But then the demands kept increasing. One of the biggest issues was the bridal party. Rachel asked me to be a bridesmaid, and at first I thought it might be okay. But then she began dictating every single aspect of my role: the dress, shoes, hairstyle, and even how I should interact with certain guests. She also criticized me constantly, comparing my appearance to the other bridesmaids, implying I wasn't polished enough or glamorous enough. When I tried to gently push back, she and my mom framed it as me being difficult or not a team player. It felt like I was being punished for having boundaries I had every right to maintain. The breaking point came when my sister and parents asked me to contribute financially to a portion of the wedding I couldn't realistically afford. I make a modest income, and while I've saved for trips or personal goals, I cannot justify spending thousands on dresses, accessories, and gifts when it would jeopardize my financial stability. I explained this clearly, but they dismissed my concerns and made me feel guilty. My mom even said, "If you loved your sister, money wouldn't matter." I couldn't believe it. I realized that my presence at this wedding was being demanded under conditions that made me uncomfortable and stressed, not celebrated. After days of agonizing over what to do, I made the decision to decline attending the wedding entirely. I sent a heartfelt message to Rachel explaining that I love her, I am happy for her, but I cannot participate under the current circumstances. I emphasized that my absence is not about her marriage or her happiness, but about maintaining my mental health and boundaries. I offered to meet up separately to celebrate with her in a smaller, more private setting, but I did not relent on the main wedding attendance. The fallout has been intense. My parents are furious. My dad said I'm being selfish and ungrateful, and that I'm ruining family unity. My mom has been crying and accusing me of being jealous and petty. Rachel, initially silent, texted me saying she can't believe I would skip the most important day of her life and accused me of choosing myself over family. Extended family members are taking sides, and I've had relatives tell me I'm being unreasonable. Some friends have told me I have every right to protect myself, but I can't shake the guilt. My sister's wedding is only a few weeks away, and the tension is unbearable. I've been reflecting a lot, and I honestly feel conflicted. On one hand, I recognize that this is a once-in-a-lifetime event for Rachel, and I am aware that my absence will be noticed and possibly hurt feelings. On the other hand, attending under the current expectations would be emotionally and financially draining, and it might reinforce the same unhealthy patterns I've been trying to break from for years. I have attempted to set boundaries respectfully, but every attempt has been met with guilt-tripping, criticism, and pressure. Some things that weigh on me are, I genuinely love my sister, and I want to celebrate her in some way. I've considered sending a gift and a card, but my family insists that my physical presence is the only way to show love. I've even thought about attending for just the ceremony or reception to minimize involvement, but I know that would still require me to conform to dress codes, photos, and social obligations that make me uncomfortable. I'm also worried that refusing could permanently damage my relationship with my parents and sister, and that I might be judged harshly by other relatives for years to come. I guess I'm posting this because I want to know, am I really the asshole here for refusing to attend my sister's wedding to protect my mental health and financial stability? Or am I overreacting and being selfish? I feel trapped between wanting to be supportive and needing to respect my own boundaries, and I'm unsure if there's a way to do both without being vilified. I would appreciate honest perspectives. I've tried explaining everything calmly and respectfully, but the emotional backlash from my family has been overwhelming. I don't want to burn bridges permanently, but I also can't sacrifice my well-being for a day that, according to them, defines family loyalty. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of being pushed aside by my family. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated me during the planning process. I, 28F, have always been very close to my sister, Lisa, 32F. Growing up, we shared everything, clothes, secrets, even our worst crushes. Our bond was solid, and even as adults, we remained in each other's lives constantly. She got engaged to her fiancé, Daniel, 33M, about a year ago, and initially I was thrilled. I had always imagined helping her plan her wedding, and she seemed excited about my involvement. Things started to go wrong almost immediately. When she first announced that she wanted me to be her maid of honor, I was honored, but I quickly realized that her expectations were intense. She wanted a wedding planner, photographer, and caterer who all fit within her strict aesthetic, and she expected me to handle most of the negotiations because I'm so good with people and budgets. I work full-time as a marketing analyst and also freelance on weekends, so my schedule is hectic. I told her that I could help, but that I had limits. She brushed it off and said, "You're family. You make time." The first major conflict came with the bridal shower. Lisa wanted it to be a surprise, but she also wanted me to organize it completely. She gave me a $500 budget and a list of about 50 people. She also specified themes, decorations, and even the type of games to play. I spent weeks calling venues, arranging catering, and coordinating RSVPs. On the day of the shower, Lisa complained that the decorations weren't exactly as she envisioned and that the dessert table looked sad. I tried to brush it off, but she openly criticized my choices in front of our family, saying things like, "I don't know why I expected anything different, and this isn't what I asked for, but I guess it will have to do." I was embarrassed and upset, but I tried to stay calm. After that, the wedding planning only got worse. Every decision I made, from selecting bridesmaid dresses to choosing a floral arrangement, was scrutinized. If I suggested something, she either ignored it or later accused me of not understanding her vision. She also started calling me at all hours for advice, even about things she could easily handle herself, like responding to vendor emails or confirming times with the caterer. I politely set boundaries, saying I couldn't respond after 8 p.m., but she would guilt-trip me, saying things like, "I thought family was supposed to support each other, and I can't do this without you." The final straw came with a bachelorette party. I had planned a weekend trip for her and the bridesmaids, but she demanded last-minute changes that made it almost impossible to execute. She criticized the hotel I booked, the activities I arranged, and even the itinerary I created. She also invited several people I had never met and didn't have space or budget for. I tried to compromise, but she kept shifting the plan and then complaining about each adjustment. By the time the weekend arrived, I was exhausted and anxious, and she spent the whole time complaining that the party wasn't perfect. At one point, she said to me, "I honestly don't know why I even asked you to help. You're useless." I was shocked and hurt. After that, I tried to distance myself a bit, hoping she would calm down. I stopped volunteering for extra tasks and limited my availability, but she interpreted it as me abandoning her. She started texting me constantly, with guilt-laden messages about how much she needed me, how I was ruining her special day, and how she couldn't imagine doing this without me. I tried to set boundaries again, but she escalated, sending long, accusatory messages and even crying over video calls, blaming me for every little hiccup in the planning. 2 weeks before the wedding, after another argument over the seating chart, I finally told her that I could not participate in the wedding in any active role. I explained that I was overwhelmed, stressed, and emotionally drained, and that I needed to prioritize my mental health. I offered to attend as a guest and support her from a distance. She reacted very badly. She yelled at me over the phone, calling me selfish, ungrateful, and a terrible sister. She said that if I didn't fully commit, I shouldn't come at all. I felt trapped because I didn't want to hurt her further, but I also couldn't handle being treated as a punching bag while pretending to be happy. After a lot of thought, I told her that I would not be attending the wedding. I explained that I loved her, but that I couldn't participate given the way she had treated me over the past year. I said that I hoped she could understand someday, and that I truly wanted her to have a happy day without my negativity surrounding her. She responded by cutting off contact and posting passive-aggressive messages on social media about family abandoning family and ungrateful siblings who only care about themselves. Since then, other family members have taken sides. Some say I'm justified for protecting my mental health, while others are furious, saying I should have put up with it for one day and that I'm letting pride ruin the family. I feel hurt and conflicted because I love my sister, but I also feel that she has been incredibly manipulative and unreasonable throughout the process. I'm starting to doubt myself. Am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after all of this, even though my actions have caused a family rift? I truly feel that I'm prioritizing my well-being, but the backlash has been severe, and I can't tell if I overreacted or if my sister was genuinely out of line. I'm willing to hear all perspectives because I want to understand whether I handled this poorly or if my boundaries were valid. I'm devastated about the situation, but I also need to protect myself. AITA for refusing to let my father's new partner dictate how we handle his medical care, which caused a huge family conflict. This is long and complicated, but I need perspective on whether I went too far. My father, Robert, 68M, has been married twice. My mother passed away when I was 15, and my father remarried a few years later to a woman named Diane, 62F. Diane has always been very controlling and demanding, but my father loves her, and for a long time, I tried to tolerate it for his sake. I am Robert's only child, and he has always relied on me for major decisions, particularly regarding his health and finances. A few months ago, my father was diagnosed with a serious but manageable heart condition. The doctors prescribed a strict treatment plan, including medication, lifestyle changes, and regular checkups. My father was overwhelmed and confused by the diagnosis, and I stepped in to help organize his appointments, track medications, and make sure he followed the doctor's instructions. I thought this was straightforward, but Diane immediately inserted herself, insisting that she should be the one in charge. She claimed that because she lived with him and cared for him daily, her opinions should override mine. The first real conflict came when Diane tried to change his diet. She refused to follow the diet plan prescribed by his cardiologist, insisting on cooking her own meals for him, which were high in sodium and fat. I explained that the diet was medically necessary, but she insisted that he deserved to enjoy his meals and that I was being controlling. I reminded her that I wasn't trying to control him. I was ensuring he stayed healthy, but she ignored me and started giving him different meals anyway. I confronted my father about this, and he admitted that he wanted to eat the meals Diane prepared, even though he knew they weren't ideal. I felt frustrated and helpless because following her guidance could worsen his condition. The next conflict was scheduling appointments. I had arranged for his cardiologist and a nutritionist to see him regularly, but Diane began calling the offices and canceling or rescheduling appointments without consulting me. She claimed she knew what was best and didn't want him burdened by too many visits. I tried to intervene, telling her that skipping appointments could put his health at serious risk, but she brushed me off, saying I was overreacting and that I didn't understand the situation. Tensions escalated further when Diane tried to dictate which medications he should take. She openly questioned his prescriptions and suggested alternative remedies she read about online. I explained that only his doctor should decide on medication changes, but she dismissed this, claiming she had done extensive research and that the doctor's advice was too rigid. My father seemed confused and caught in the middle, and I was furious because his health was literally on the line. The breaking point came last month. Diane insisted on being present for a routine cardiology appointment and wanted to speak on behalf of my father, overriding what I had coordinated. During the consultation, she interrupted the doctor repeatedly, contradicted my explanations, and tried to push for alternative treatments. I calmly intervened, saying that my father had the right to make decisions with guidance from his doctor and that she was interfering in a way that could jeopardize his care. Diane yelled at me in the waiting room, calling me bossy, controlling, and selfish, and stormed out. The doctor later confirmed that following Diane's suggestions could have been dangerous and praised me for keeping the treatment plan on track. After the appointment, I confronted my father privately and asked him to clarify boundaries. He said he appreciated my help, but didn't want to upset Diane. I explained that his health had to come first and that allowing Diane to interfere was too risky. He reluctantly agreed, but warned me that Diane would not accept this. The next day, Diane demanded that I step back entirely and accused me of bullying my father into listening to me. She also started sending passive-aggressive emails to the family, portraying me as a controlling daughter trying to undermine her. Our parents became involved as well. My father's older siblings called to say I was being rude and aggressive, and that Diane had every right to be involved. They argued that I should compromise to keep the peace. I tried to explain that compromise was impossible when it came to health decisions that could have life or death consequences. I offered to coordinate together on a plan that both protected my father's health and allowed Diane to help in supportive ways, but she refused every suggestion. The situation reached a climax last week during a family meeting. Diane accused me of trying to take over my father's life, and I reminded her that I wasn't trying to control him, but to ensure he followed his doctor's advice. She shouted that I was manipulating him and that I didn't care about his happiness. I responded firmly, saying that his health had to come first and that I would not allow dangerous interference. The argument lasted nearly an hour, with multiple family members taking sides. My father was visibly upset, Diane was furious, and I left the meeting exhausted and stressed. Since then, the family dynamic has been tense. Diane refuses to communicate directly with me and has been sending complaints to other relatives. Some family members think I am being overbearing and harsh, while others support me for prioritizing my father's health. My father feels torn and guilty, wanting to keep peace while also acknowledging that Diane's interference could be harmful. I've tried to maintain boundaries, communicate clearly, and act respectfully, but it has caused a major rift in the family. I keep questioning myself. On one hand, I feel I did the right thing by standing up for my father's medical needs and protecting him from dangerous decisions. On the other hand, I know the confrontation caused a huge family argument and hurt relationships. I have tried repeatedly to be patient, collaborative, and reasonable, but Diane refuses to compromise or follow the doctor's guidance. So, AITA for refusing to let my father's partner dictate his medical care, even though it led to a massive family conflict and strained relationships with my relatives. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.